Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ned Bellavance, Ned1313 on Twitter, and welcome to the Daily Check-In for November 12th, 2020. It's Thursday, and that means it's Home Lab Thursday. I'm going to give you an update about my Home Lab network because while I was on vacation a couple weeks ago, vacation, as it were, I ended up redoing the network around the house so that I could accommodate my new Home Lab networking based off some of the issues I had before. And if you've been watching, I'll throw a link up here, but I explained kind of the issue I was having with my home network and interfacing with my lab network. And it really came down to the fact that my poor Wi Fi router really didn't understand VLANs, didn't know what to do with them, wasn't capable of doing the NAT-P that I needed. I basically needed a prosumer device, something a step above what I was using. And what I was using was the Orbi Netgear Orbi, I think it's just called Orbi router, and then they have these additional satellites. So you create like a mesh wireless network, which is great for wireless networking and great for consumer applications, but not so great if you have some needs above and beyond that, let's just say. So what did I do? I went with something else, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Before we get into that, I do want to remind you, and I just started this, I now have a Patreon. Links are down in the description. If you're interested in supporting what I do, like this home lab stuff is not free. I have to pay electric and buy gear and all of that. If you want to help support making better home lab videos or some of my other habits that I have on the different days of the week, sign up on Patreon. Chuck me like $2, $5, whatever works for you. There's 3 tiers. You can get some free stickers. It's a good time. Links down in the description. I really appreciate it. If you have the spare change, I mean, I totally understand some people, they ain't got the money, and I don't blame you. But if you can support, much appreciated. Before we get into today's topic, how you doing? Let's check in. What's going on? How's Thursday? Is it a good Thursday? Is it a thirsty Thursday? Are you feeling like you need to have a drink tonight? I have been trying to give up alcohol Monday through Thursday. I did it last week. I'm doing it this week, and I think it's a good move. I think I kind of fell into a sort of a situation with coronavirus and the whole lockdown where I was having a beer or a glass of wine most nights, and it's a little too much, little too much. So trying to taper off a little bit, and I think it's going well. I feel a little bit better. I'm sleeping better too, and that's nice. So pro tip for you, if you're not sleeping so well and you're drinking something every night, maybe time to lean back on that a little bit and just, abstain for a few days and see if that improves your sleep. Anyway, let's talk about home networking. That's much more interesting. Okay, so like I said, I was having some trouble with my home networking gear. I had an Orbi Wi-Fi router that was hooked into my FiOS connection. So it was getting a public IP address directly from the ONT unit that's in my garage. And then it was doing the regular NAT of all the devices that were connected, both wired and wireless, across my house. The home lab threw a wrench in the plans. So let me just share out my screen and you can see kind of what was going on here. So roughly this is what is going on within the context of the home lab and the context of the wireless network. So this is my Orbi router. This is the Orbi router right here. And this was originally going directly to the internet. And I had all of my lab ESXi hosts over here. They were all connecting to this Cisco switch. It's the Catalyst 3560 or 3650. For whatever reason, I always get those mixed up. It's a Catalyst switch. No big deal. So they're all connected into this, and I have VLANs for different things like storage and management and out-of-band networking, all that kind of good stuff. And that's my VLANs, 100 through 103. So I've got 4 VLANs, and each one is using an IP address in the range of 10.0.x being whatever number VLAN. So 10.0.1.0 would be my 101 VLAN, and they're all /24s, right? So pretty standard setup. And on one of these hosts, on this host right here, I've got a domain controller that's also running DHCP just for the lab, not for anything else. And so that's just running DHCP for all my lab machines. And then the Orbi at the time was running DHCP for everything in the regular network. So this was running DHCP here. And the issue I was having is I had routing set up properly that devices in my VLANs, my 10.VLANs, could get out and talk to devices in the general network, but they couldn't get out to the internet because basically the Orbi had no idea where these addresses were coming from, couldn't do the NAT translation for them, and it was just kind of a mess, right? So what did I end up doing? Well, I ended up getting a Ubiquiti Edge router 10X. That's what I got. They're not that expensive. I think it was only $100, which, I mean, yeah, it's a little expensive for a router, but it's not that expensive for a prosumer grade router. So what happens is now my Orbi is no longer connecting directly to the internet. Now my Ubiquiti is connecting to the internet. It has a public IP address, and quick shout out about that. It actually took about an hour to get a public IP address on the Ubiquiti after I swapped out the two pieces of gear. I read a bunch of stuff online that said, hey, why don't you just power down this Orbi device, or actually force a release of the public IP address, power down the Orbi device, and then connect the Ubiquiti. That should do it. That didn't do it. I tried hard resetting the ONT and disconnecting the backup battery. That didn't do it. It was really just time. I had to wait about an hour, and suddenly it started getting a public IP address, and everything was okay. So on the Ubiquiti side, and I'll show this in a moment, I have the interface up in the browser. I went through a basic wizard that just did a Soho setup. So very basic, minimal setup. And then I originally had a routed port on my Cisco that had an IP address I'm using 192.168.1/0 for my home network. I had a routed port on here. I got rid of that routed port. So bye-bye routed port. And I just connected directly to here and made this a trunk port. And once I did that, now all the VLAN information was sent over to the Ubiquiti, and I just had to make the Ubiquiti router aware of these VLANs and the IP addressing for those VLANs, and then it was able to set up the proper routes to get things out to the internet and also talk between the networks and to the regular network. The Orbi, for its part, is still connected, but now it's just doing Wi-Fi. It's working in access point mode. So this is just an AP now. And there's actually a second one, another Orbi over here that's also functioning as an access point, and it's in satellite mode. So that is the setup that I have today, and it's working absolutely fine. Let me show you the interface that I've got. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so this is the operating system is called Edge OS. And this is the main dashboard of the Edge Router 10X. So just kind of take you through things a little bit. If we go to, let's see, what's the easiest thing to go to here? Well, if we look at VLANs, we can see I've got a number of VLANs configured. I've got out-of-band management, storage, and VM 103, and they're all on interface ETH8. So port 8 on the router is connected over to my Cisco switch, which has all my lab gear connected to it. And all I had to do was add these VLANs to that interface, and it basically creates a sub interface on that interface, and it just names the sub interface after the VLAN number, and you tell it what IP address it should expect to find on that, and it does. It finds exactly the IP addresses that I told it would. And then when those devices want to talk to the internet, it refers to its routing engine, and it says, okay, if I'm sending traffic to 10.0.3, that is on this sub interface. That's where I need to send it to, and I'll strip off the packet and send it that way. Actually, no, it doesn't strip the VLAN tag off. It leaves the VLAN tag on and sends it tagged over to the catalyst, which leaves the tag on until it exits the access port of the actual device that it's going to talk to. So it has that, and then it's got a default route that is going out my public IP address. So anything that needs to go to the internet, it knows if it's coming from 10.0.3, it'll send it out this destination. And when that return traffic comes back, it knows how to get that return traffic back to the device that originally requested it. And that was the part that I was missing. That was what the other router couldn't do. It just didn't understand this. And that's fine. So this is a nice little device. It set up the basic routing for me right away. When I added these VLANs, it also added the proper route information in here through the wizard. I didn't have to do it at a command line. I mean, I could have, but it's easier that I didn't have to. And it has, cool stuff like you can set up a VPN, you can set up additional services. Right now it's running DHCP for my regular network. And like I said, my DHCP for my lab network is through a Windows DC that's also doing DNS for that side of things. And it's forwarding DNS requests to here. This is also doing DNS, and it also allowed me to add, and I don't think you can see it in this interface, but from the command line, I was able to add my lab domain. It's just bellalab.local. I was able to add that and tell it for anything with that, forward that request along to my Windows DNS server, and it can resolve it for you, which makes things like my, let's say, my vSphere vCenter server accessible. So I can just type in vcsa bellalab.local, and I'm on the my regular network, my 192 network, and it's still able to resolve back to my vCenter server. And anything that's on bellalab.local that has an entry in that Windows DNS server, it's going to be able to find it now. So that was a nice little additional benefit of swapping this out. And also just has some good dashboard stuff. You can do some traffic analysis with it. Like, there's some cool stuff baked into this device, and it was not that expensive. I'm pretty sure it was $99. So I'll throw a link down in the description that shows you exactly which model I bought. So that's my new updated home lab networking. I'm excited that it's all working properly. And if you have questions about this, if you want to know how I set it up, how I set up the Cisco Catalyst switch side of things, let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter. It's Ned1313. And I'm happy to share what I've discovered so far. And I'm sure I'm going to run into roadblocks in the future because I'm about to work on Pixie Boot. I already started on it today and I kind of got it working, but there's a lot of stuff to iron out there. So that'll probably be my next video, is getting Pixie Boot working on my home lab. And then I'm going to get Pixie Boot working for my Raspberry Pis. And that's a whole other thing, because I think I'm going to have to move them off my 192 and onto the lab network as well. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please share and subscribe. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe out there. Bye for now.